The New Era, Chapter 31. Subject, Staff Sergeant Power. Species, human. Species description, mammalian humanoid, no tail, 6 foot 2 inches, or 1.87 meters average height. 185 pounds or 84 kilograms average weight. 170-year life expectancy. Ship, NA. Location, classified. About fucking time, Corporal Simmons muttered as the first shuttle came through the gate. I watched as the shuttle gently settled onto the landing bay and Marines started pouring out of it. They lifted off as another shuttle came through. Simmons was being a little melodramatic, but I didn't exactly disagree. It had taken a lot longer than I'd hoped for our reinforcements to get here. Guarding the gate had been tense, but we only came under attack from boredom. A mighty enemy to be sure, but one that is only fatal to fools. We definitely had at least one amongst us. There's always one. But the job at hand had kept my Marines from doing anything too stupid. "Staff Sergeant," an officer called for as he approached. "Staff Sergeant Power, I need a word." Resisting the urge to sigh, I jogged to meet the officer and noted that my heads-up display identified him as Captain Nichols. I snapped into a position of attention and gave the officer a subtle nod, the battlefield replacement for a salute. He returned the gesture without snapping to attention. "At ease," he said. "Report." "1 KIA, sir, but no other casualties," I replied. "Haven't had contact with the enemy since we got on the side of the gate. My tactical assessment of the situation is that we still need anti-tank ordnance to continue our mission." "Well, we've got plenty to spare, Staff Sergeant. However, the Colonel wants to bring you back into the fold." "Which Colonel, sir?" "Didn't get the time to familiarize yourself with the new chain of command. A lot of that going around. Colonel Havensmith. She wants me to grab you and the rest of Marsoc Marines under her command." "With respect, sir, I might not be under her command. I've been acting under orders of USAI Omega, sir." "Huh. I don't know what rank Omega is, come to think of it. What does it matter, though? Havensmith is the Assault Force commanding officer." "USAI Omega is the fire team's handler, sir." "Ah, I see. Handler trumps CO in most cases, but, well, what about the other 2 fire teams that make up your squad?" "They've been placed under my command, sir." "Are you at liberty to divulge your orders, Staff Sergeant?" "Yes, sir. Proceed to and through the wharf gates and enter the inner calls to the grand vessel, securing them as we go. We were told to wait for you this time, but I am under the impression that won't be the case again until we need to resupply." "Shit, we've got conflicting orders. Okay, I'll relay the situation to the Colonel. You are to stand down until you receive further orders. From me, understood?" "Aye, aye, sir," I replied with another nod. "I'm serious, Staff Sergeant, if Omega's messing around by acting as your handler without proper authorization. You and your men will be subjected to a court-martial if you obey his orders without hearing from the Colonel first," Captain Nichols said, then chuckled sardonically, "assuming that we live long enough for that." "Understood, sir." "Dismissed." I gestured for my squad to join me and made my way to where the weaponry was being unloaded. The spots my Marines left were quickly taken up by rank and file. They jogged to catch up to me, and we all arrived at the unloading area together. "We're being told to stay put," I said, anticipating a negative reaction. "Bullshit," Gunny Kim growled, proving me right. The rest of my team murmured the same agreement as Gunny. "Whose orders?" Staff Sergeant Ramirez demanded. "Colonel Havensmith," I answered. "Who the fuck is Colonel Havensmith?" Kim asked. "I don't know. There may have been a slip-up in the chain command, and things didn't get communicated correctly. Either way, we're under orders to stay put while it gets sorted out." I shrugged. "Even got threatened with a court-martialing." "They can only court-martial us if we live, Staff Sergeant," Simmons pointed out. "What's the odds of that?" "Shut up, Simmons," I ordered. "How long will it take to get things sorted, Staff Sergeant?" Lance Corporal Goetz asked. "Anywhere from minutes to months. Welcome to the fucking Marine Corps." Gunny Kim answered sarcastically. "Thought Marsoc would be better than the fleet," Lance Corporal Longhole mumbled. "Oh boy, you must have gotten shit in your brain with your head that far up your ass. Spec ops are always worse when it comes to the bureaucratic bullshit." "Especially Marsoc, because we don't have a clear-cut chain of command," Ramirez pointed out. "So, Power, what's the plan?" "Gunny, find and talk to the quartermaster," I said. "Put some weight on them if they give you a pushback. We need anti-tank order. Once we know how much we can get, we'll figure out who carries what." "Roger," Kim said. Kim and his team walked off, entering the barely controlled chaos of Marines unloading crates. We stood in silence for a moment, watching shuttles land and take off again. "What about the rest of us?" Ramirez asked after a few moments. "We hurry up and wait," I replied. More grumbling came from the Marsoc operatives. If there was one thing that's been true for every soldier to ever exist, from the dawn of civilization all the way until present day, it was that we all hated waiting for action. Many would be quick to call this feeling anxiety, and they're not wrong. But there's something particularly nasty about this form of anxiety that's difficult to put into words. Delays prior to stressful situations always invite room for speculation. And this gets particularly nerve-wracking when one is faced with the potential of imminent demise. The more likely imminent demise, the heavier the pit in your stomach gets. The longer we wait, the harder it is to ignore that pit. It occurred to me that I could probably just reach out to Omega and see if we could speed things up. But I knew all too well how that would be received if the higher-ups found out. The chain of command might as well be a fucking dogma. You have to step on toes to go over heads, and that always comes with consequences. It would be wiser to let the Colonel and Omega hash out who's in charge, regardless of how stressful it is to wait around and find out the results of that conversation ends up being. "Hoorah, gents," Gunny Kim called as he and his team returned with a massive crate in tow. "Present for you all. Where's my milk and cookies?" "Got some milk for you, Gunny," Ramirez said suggestively. "Joke's on you, I ain't picky "What have you got for us?" I interrupted. "Right, 89 6-count, SHAP projectiles 45 count, 2 launchers and 15 rockets per team. Oh, snatch grenades and ammo too." Lieutenant said to grab what we can carry and return the rest. "Feel like heap would be better," Sergeant Smith said. "Get more splash, take out some of the surrounding platforms along with the mechs we hit. Don't even have to get direct hits." "Do they even make heap anymore?" Corporal Johnson asked. "Sure they do," Ramirez laughed. "In 180 Mike, high-explosive armor-penetrator rounds have been relegated to artillery only for about half a decade now." I popped the crate and looked at the order with a grim satisfaction. Smith wasn't wrong. The saboed heavy armor-penetrator rockets wouldn't make much more boom when they took down the mechs, but they'll definitely take the fuckers down. We've got the bullets and the grenades for smaller bots. The 89, the latest in recoilless rocket launcher, decked to hit the fleet, was kind of overkill when used with the SHAP rockets. The launcher comes equipped with a laser guidance system that tracks refraction, which allows it to be used against reflective stealth technology, and the SHAP rockets possesses shield-penetrative abilities. The mechs, however, possessed neither. They were going to be dropping like gigantic, well-armored flies. "All right, pair up," I ordered. "Figure out who's carrying the tube and who's carrying the rockets. Odd ones out to carry extra rounds and nades." The Marines set about divvying things up, already knowing how my fire team was going to pair up. I grabbed some extra ammunition and grenades. Smith slung the 89, with Hansen packed the sack of rounds. Things went less smoothly between Simmons and Johnson, though. "Look, I've fired these before," Simmons said, "both in boot and live combat. You haven't, right?" "No, I haven't." Johnson snatched the tube from him. "That means it's my turn." "What if you miss?" Simmons asked, snatching the tube back. The two corporals kept arguing, and the tube went back and forth for another 10 minutes. Everyone else had already geared up and were watching the exchange by the time they finally played Rochambeau. They played the best of 2 out of 3, with Simmons won. "God damn it," Johnson grumbled, shouldering the pack of rockets. "Well, glad we got that figured out," I said sternly. "You two get to return the crate." The corporals turned to me, poised to argue, but my body language advised them that that would be a bad idea. They shared a look, shoved each other, and began picking the crate up. While they strolled off, I found an empty shipping container to post up next to. We formed a loose circle of sitting and leaning Marines while we waited for word on high. Johnson and Simmons joined us shortly after, and we all continued waiting together. I tried to keep my mind off the pit in my gut by eavesdropping on various conversations around me. A Neutron stick shoved its way into my lips, reminding me to eat it. Like clockwork, all of the conversations turned to how terrible the waxy sticks were. Gunny Kim argued against this assessment, claiming that it reminded him of his childhood. Even I chuckled. About an hour later, my comms activated. "Staff Sergeant Power," Omega said. "Apologies for the delay." "What's going on, Omega?" I asked. My external speakers were off, but the rest of the Marines noted a slight movements caused by speaking and fell silent. "Colonel Havensmith is in charge of the assault on the gates. You're going to be merging with her command." "That's not what you said. Tip of the spear, remember?" "I'm incapable of forgetting without quite a lot of effort on my part. The Colonel is going to be using you as a forward scout, essentially the same thing that I was having you do. But you won't have to engage the enemy by yourselves." "Fine. What took so long?" "Negotiations," the AI chuckled. "Havensmith has her own scouts and wasn't happy about handing the job over to Marsoc. She also wasn't happy when I offered to provide her all the intel I can get with the security system. Like many officers, she doesn't trust me. We had to get the general involved, but she came around in the end. That being said, I'm maintaining my status as your handler, and my orders supersede the colonel's. Understood?" "I'm going to need to hear it from an officer," I replied. "I am aware. A captain is on his way to tell you. ETA 4 minutes." I sighed as the comm went dead, then waited for the captain to arrive. My squad watched me in anticipation, unsure of whether or not to ask what was going on. Just as Gunny Kim got worked up enough to clear his throat, Captain Nichols came from around the corner of the shipping container and gestured to me. With another sign, I jogged over to the captain and gave the nod salute at attention. "Hurrah, Staff Sergeant," Nichols said. "Got a mixed bag of news for you." "Aye, sir," I replied. "My Mega already briefed me." I bet he did. Okay, the main points are that you are now our forward scouts. False Recon isn't happy about it, but regardless of their feelings, they're going to be your backups. Your task is to verify information provided by USAI Omega and make tactical suggestions as you go. Roger. Also, Omega is still your handler, Nichols said with a sigh. As you know, that means that if it gives you an order, it supersedes any order given by Colonel Havensmith. Sorry, we tried. The bot wouldn't budge on that point, though. It's all right, sir. It isn't as bad as you'd think. Really? I'll be damned. Well, if Omega nabs you from us, give us a shot and False Recon will swap with you. Final thing, engaging with the enemy is at your discretion, or theirs, I suppose. Roger that, sir. When are we heading out? Oof, Nichols chuckled. About an hour and 45. An hour, sir? I asked angrily. And 45 mics, yes. We're doing this the right way, Staff Sergeant. That means forward operation bases, supply lines, and defensive positions. If you knew how many Marines are involved in this operation, you'd be amazed that it's only going to take that long. Be prepared for word. Aye, aye, sir. Dismissed. Captain Nichols performed about-face, and I returned to my squad. Despite their helmets, I could tell that they were all very curious, mostly because the Lancers had cocked their heads like puppy dogs. Keeping control of my anger and impatience, I relayed to the gathered Marines what had been said. The emotional roller coaster that each of them went through was damn near palpable. But they maintained their silence right up until I told them how long we'd have to wait to move out. Then they broke into grumbles, mumbles, and curses. Many of these curses were rather long, but Corporal Johnson managed to sum up our situation with an almost poetic succinctness. "This is fucking bullshit," he griped. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.